The last several videos, I've been kind of going through my process of the different tools that I use to plan things and organize my life and get everything in place to help me be a productive person. I use Notion, I use Google Calendars, and I use matrix planning, bullet journaling to get that all done. And it's a lot of stuff. I'm sure you've been watching these and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy, this guy's crazy. He's got so much going on. Today, I'm going to get into how I take all three of those things, put them together, and make it into a process that works for me so that you can kind of learn the process of how my brain works and how you can implement something similar for you. It could be using all three of those tools, it could be using two of them, but just like get familiar with a process that works for you and get it done. Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon Gustafson. I own two assisted living facilities, and I created this channel to help people just like you learn the ins and outs of investing in assisted living. Welcome to Assisted Living Investing. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In our last video, we talked a little bit about how to add a new calendar to Google Calendar and help you stay organized as you're doing that. It's a tool that I've found to be extremely helpful, and I hope that you're able to learn something there that could help you out and just kind of helping you do some time blocking and make it so that it looks cool, make it look like it's something that you want to work with. So I hope you found that video. If you did, make sure you go and watch it and hit the like button for it. I'd love to get your feedback on that. In today's video, I'm going to get into a daily kind of plan with me process that I do using all the tools that I use. So bullet journaling, using Notion, and Google Calendar. I'm not going to get into a screen share or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of talk you and walk you through the process, and then you can go through and watch each of those videos again and kind of learn how I do that process. And then this video is meant to give you context on how I pull all three of those things together to make a good planning process that allows me to be effective, get a lot of things done, and make progress as I'm operating my facilities and working a full-time job and doing a YouTube channel and just the other business ventures that I've got going on, which is a lot, but I'm hoping that this video gives you a little bit of context so that you can do that. I'll try to link those videos up above as I talk through each of those points. So one on Notion, one on bullet journaling, matrix planning, and one on Google Calendars, so that you can go in and watch those as you're watching this and get some information on that. All right, so the first step in my process, and I'm going to walk you through exactly kind of my process on how I do things, the sequence that I go through as I work through this, just so you kind of get a feel for it. But step number one is Notion. So I'll link up above Notion and how I use Notion with the advanced to-do list is kind of the way that I do this. So the first thing that I do is I have my own advanced to-do list, very similar to what I went through in that video, but it's a little more, I would say, robust and a little bit more custom to what I need. And I have a bunch of different flags in there and a bunch of different things that allow me to work through it. But if you go and watch that video on how to make that advanced to-do list in Notion, you're going to be able to see kind of how I work through things. And my Notion acts as the future log that we talked about in the bullet journal method. So the bullet journal method, and I'll link this down below so you can go and purchase it on Amazon. If you purchase it there, I'll get a little bit of a kickback on it, but it's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. Make sure you go and read that and learn a little bit more about future logs and how they work. But that's how I use my Notion, is it allows me to have this big, long to-do list of all of the things that I need to get done. And then I have custom filters built in for what I'm going to do today and tomorrow and for the rest of the week. And then I also built in filters for separate days, and I'll just go in and adjust those. So I have a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of filter that allows me to look at things so that I can plan a week out in advance. And it has really helped me kind of stay in line. And I really use that a lot when I am doing things like planning for the weekend. So on Friday, I'll do a kind of longer planning session that I do, a weekly planning session, making sure my calendar is completely up to date with different meetings and things like that, that those meetings are in my Notion to-do list, that they're on there. And then I'll kind of do that matrix planning for the weekend. and make sure that everything is in there, and kind of plan Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Or if I'm heading into a holiday weekend, I'll do it throughout the entire holiday. And those different views are what allows me to do that really easily. It's one of those things that you set it up once, you put it in there, and then you just have to adjust filters a little bit as you move along, and it just makes it easy, streamlines the process. So highly recommend you taking a little bit of time to set things up how you need it to be, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier going forward. And then the way that I use Notion as I go throughout my day is, if I'm in a meeting, I'll pull Notion up and I'll type in notes, or once a meeting's over, I'll take Notion, put it up, and I'll recap the meeting or things like that. As I'm in a meeting, I will have Notion to the side and I'll type up my to-do list. I do this with my administrator all the time, where we're talking and they're like, oh, I need this and this and this. I need you to talk to our vendor that does the internet and fix a problem there. We need to get a tree removed. Let's have a conversation. These are actual things that have happened recently for one of our facilities. And so I just put those in my to-do list. And from there, when I do my kind of daily matrix planning process, which I'll get into here in just a second, all of those to-do lists are there, and then I'll assign them out to days in the future, so they'll pop up into my list when it gets to the day that it's due, or the day before it's due, so I can do my matrix planning process. And I use a lot of those tags that we talked about in that advanced in that advanced to-do list video on Notion, that is linked up above a little bit earlier in the video, where I go in and I have those different tags. And so it allows me to really hone in on what I need to do, which area I need to do it in. And I just kind of fill those out as I'm going through the day. When a to-do list item comes up, I'll put it in there, and then I'll review, or if I know what the due date is or when I'm going to work on it, I will put the appropriate date and I just put it on there. If it's a quick recap, I'll just throw everything in there, kind of brain dump my to-do list, and then I'll go back in later in the day and I'll clean it up and give it more appropriate to do more appropriate due dates, so that I can kind of work through that process. And then when I go in and I start doing my planning for the following day, anything that has gone into my to-do list at some point is going to just kind of feed up, and it goes into that filter that is things that are due tomorrow, and then they just kind of pop up, and then I just put them into my matrix plan, which I'll get into here in just a second. So that's kind of how I use Notion as my future log, again, that I reference with the bullet journal method by Ryder Carroll. And I'll link this down below so you can go and purchase it on Amazon. But it's my ongoing to-do list. It helps me with everything that's coming up, and just helps me know exactly what needs to get done. And I found that to be a much better process for me mentally than the way that he describes it in the book. I've tried it, and for me, it just didn't work. That doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. And everything that I'm talking about here, you might be able to just do in a bullet journal. For me, using Notion as this portion of my planning works very well. And so I'm going to encourage you to find the process that works for you. And it might take you 3, 6, 12, 24 months to figure out exactly what's going to work for you. But if you take the time and really kind of commit yourself to it, you're going to find a process that really works well and is going to benefit you. So that's kind of how I do phase one, is in Notion. I've got things going, I'm in meetings, I'm taking notes, adding them to my to-do list, and then giving them appropriate due dates, and then they're filtering up as it gets closer to their due date. And that allows me to do my matrix planning, which is step 2 in the process. All right, so step number 2 is matrix planning. And really, step 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. I do them pretty close, pretty much in line with each other. But I'm going to talk about step 2 being matrix planning first here. And so what I do is I have this big list of things that are built in Notion, and I have it filtered. So it's just giving me the things that are coming up in the next day, or whichever date that I'm going to be doing my matrix planning for. So I adjust it, look at that filtered view for what I want on that advanced to-do list in Notion. And once I have that in that filtered view, I also have those different sorting features for those different tags. So things like time of day and the different area that I'm working in, that we talked about in that matrix planning video. So if you go and watch that, you'll get a feel for exactly kind of how matrix planning works and how I build out that grid and where you're supposed to be adding things and things like that. So watch that video. It's going to give you a really good overview of what that looks like. But I'm looking at that filtered view in Notion. It's kind of got a matrix style of to-do list items, and then I pull out my bullet journal and start adding things in there. So as you'll recall from that matrix plan with me video, I created the matrix in my bullet journal, and I have the time of day as the rows, and then the different areas as my columns. And you can go and watch that up above. But in reviewing that Notion to-do list, I simply just kind of start looking at those different items on my to-do list and start adding them to the corresponding cell in that matrix plan. So if it's something with my family and it's in the afternoon, it's going to go in that slot. If it's something that's a meeting with my administrator in the morning, it's going to go in that slot. If it's a meeting or a project at my full-time job and it's in the morning or the afternoon, I'm going to put it in that slot. So I just start kind of fitting things in there. I will typically have around 10 to 15 items that I want to get done in a day. And those could be tasks or they could be meetings. But those things are all kind of filtering in and going into those 10 to 15 per day. And then each of those cells is going to have 0 to 4 items in it. But it makes it pretty manageable to get things done. For me, it works. I know a lot of people like to only have a couple of things to work on, and I do prioritize things. I make priorities. These are the 3 things that I really want to get done today in each of my time periods, AM, PM, and the evening. When I do my planning session and I'm doing my matrix planning, I will also outline, these are the 3 key things that I want to get done, but these are the other 15 things that I want to work on throughout the day. And then I'm able to kind of prioritize those things and get them done. So that's kind of how I build out my bullet journal and my matrix planning. And that brings me to step number 3. So while I am doing the matrix planning and I have that up, so I've got Notion, and I'm lucky enough to have multiple screens. So I've got Notion on one screen, I have my calendars on the other screen, and then I've got my bullet journal down on my desk. And so I kind of pull those things up and I just take 10, 15 minutes a day, and we'll do this and kind of design what my day is going to look like the following day, when I'm going to work on things and get them done. So I've got my Google Calendar, and while I'm adding things to that matrix plan, I am blocking off time on my calendar using the method that we talked about in adding a new calendar to Google Calendar. So I'll link that up above as well. But I kind of go in and I'll create an event, put in the details of what it is, whether it's a task or a meeting, and then I will change that calendar view to the corresponding calendar of the thing that I'm going to work on. And then it gives me the color that I want it to look like. And for me, just visually, it makes it work for me. And then once I'm done with that, I can look at my calendar and I have time blocked off for the different tasks that I'm going to work on. And they have a corresponding color for the different area that I'm working on. And so I can very easily and quickly see, okay, in the afternoon, I'm going to be recording YouTube videos for 2 hours. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the afternoon. And it's, the color that I have set for that. In the morning, I've got to make a phone call. I've got a meeting with my manager. I've got to just kind of have the conversations that I need to have. I need to make this phone call. I need to have this meeting. I need to check in on this email, those types of things. And I can get pretty granular in the types of tasks that I need to get done, especially if it's something that's just been sitting in my email inbox for months now. It's like, okay, I got to get this done. I'm going to put it as a task rather than just clean up the inbox. I'm actually going to specifically say, I'm going to get it done. And then I will put it on my calendar, and then I can see those things that are in there. I really like to kind of block that off on my calendar. It really helps to kind of protect that time for me, so that if something else comes up, it just kind of helps me stay on task, which is really helpful for me, helps me kind of visualize what I need to get done, and it works really well for me. It doesn't mean that I am a stickler and, it was just an email that I needed to answer. Something else came up and I was like, well, I can't work on that. I've got to answer this email. I'm going to push those things off. Things that are not as high a priority, I'll push off to a future date or a future time period or whatever. I'll be flexible with it. But doing the planning and kind of saying, this is what I am going to work on, helps me keep on task and get things done, which is great. Next is checking things off. So this is, I don't know that you would call it step 4, but it's just kind of the process that I go through. So once I have completed a meeting, I'll generally go in, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, go in and jot down a few quick notes in Notion for that task. And what we discussed, any takeaways, create any new to-do list items for the coming days and weeks, and then I will mark that meeting as complete in Notion. And then I will cross it out as well in my matrix plan. So I'll do that there. I also, in my weekly review process, will go in and review those notes and say, oh, was there anything in there that I need to remember, anything that I need to for sure follow up on? And I do those things. And then once a task is completed, I simply just mark it complete in Notion and cross it off in my matrix plan. There are some times that I'll go in and make some relevant notes. So I needed to talk to a security company for one of our facilities and set up a time. And so I went into that. It's more of a task kind of a thing, but I went into that today, typed in the notes that happened with that conversation, and then pushed off the task to the next time I'm going to do the meeting with them. So that's kind of how I cross things off. I don't need to do anything with it in my calendar. The calendar just kind of grays it out a little bit once the meeting is passed. I will move things around if I don't get to it in a certain day, but that's kind of how I check things off as I'm going through that process. The next thing I'm going to address, because as I'm going through this, I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is crazy. Like, that's a lot of duplicate work. He's kind of, you're doing so much. And I will say you are not wrong. So is this duplicate work? And yes, I think it probably is. I'm probably doing a little more than I need to do. But for me, I've found that as I'm putting things in 3 different locations, I put it in Notion, I put it in my bullet journal, I put it in my Google Calendar, my brain says, okay, I got to get this done. I don't forget what I'm going to do. And it really doesn't take that long once I've set up these processes to stay on top of it. 10, 15 minutes a day to do my planning session, and then really kind of hit on those things. And repeating it 3 times a day, or when I'm doing my planning session in 3 different locations, really solidifies in my mind that I need to get it done. It helps me stay on task. It helps me stay productive. Yeah, it probably is overkill, but it works for me. And as I've mentioned several times in previous videos, you need to find something that works for you and then do it. Stop worrying about, oh, my wife's going to think this of me, or my husband's going to think this, or my brother does it a different way. Stop wasting your time worrying about what other people think. Find something that works for you and do it. That's all you got to do. It doesn't matter what it is. Nobody's going to care. This is for you to help you be productive. Figure out what it is and get it done. And then also, just to be completely honest, sometimes I forget to cross things off in my matrix plan. I'm pretty good at staying on top of things in Notion, but sometimes I will forget to go into Notion or into my matrix plan and cross things off, and that's okay. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody's auditing my matrix planning journal and making sure I have crossed everything off or appropriately put the mark in there or things like that. Nobody cares. It's for me, and that's what's important. So just remember that. Do the thing that works for you, and if you're not perfect, that's okay too. It's not going to be that big of a deal. All right, I hope that was a lot of information, duplicative information for you, but I hope you found it helpful. If you did, make sure you smash that like button for me. Let me know how you do your planning sessions. I'd love to hear from you and learn from you, because my process works for me, but there are certainly ways that I could improve on it, and I would love to hear your feedback on what you do for your planning sessions that helps you be productive. So make sure you comment down below and let me know how you're doing things, and it's going to help out the community as well. So please make sure that you comment on that. In my next video, we're going to get into a kind of crazy story. I had an administrator quit on me back a month or 2 ago in December of 2021, and I'm going to share the story with you and what it was like and what that process was like and how we have kind of addressed it. It was kind of scary. I'll get into that in the next video, so make sure you watch that. It's going to be kind of an opportunity for me to open up to you and tell you a little bit about kind of what happened and how we addressed it. To learn more about investing in assisted living, make sure you visit me on assistedlivinginvesting.net. And for other content, I've got other content up there, free resources. You can set up a time to set up a call with me, and we can have a conversation about planning, about setting up your business, just all the things that you want to do. This channel is very much focused, obviously, through the name and assisted living, but I do a lot of things with small businesses as well. And so if you're watching this and like, oh, I don't do assisted living, but I really like the way that he's talking about these things, set up a time. We can chat about whatever. It's totally fine. So make sure you get over to assistedlivinginvesting.net and check out the website over there. And remember, it doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. Keep making progress step by step by step. If you do it, I promise you, if you're consistent, I promise you, you're going to be successful. Just keep going. You can do it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.